Hi, it's Michelle from Movement Lesson, and I'm here with Scott Davies, Movement Lesson Practitioner, UK.
Hi.
How you doing,
How,
Scott? Let's start
not too
talking.
bad. Yeah, it's how's your summer? It's been a while since we've been on the podcast, but it's we've both had really busy summers.
It's been a wild summer, and you know what? If you still have to do it, and that's part of our topic today, deviations and compensations. Most people see the gaps and they say, "Okay, we're done." And we're not done. We have a lot of content to put out. So we're here and we're doing our podcast and we're going to try and be a bit more up and frequent with it. But the summer was great and I learned how to golf, or I'm
And
learning.
how's the golfing going?
I'm really excited. I love learning new things. I am turning 60 on Saturday, and I think it's really important. Two major changes that I've made in my life is again that learning, that 5-year-old type of learning. I'm not perfect, but I'm pretty. And the 5-year-old who says, I can sing, I can draw, but they get to the fifth grade and they're like, who can draw, who can, and nobody wants to put their hand up. I've always been unique that way. And I really want that vitality back. And I've started a lot of also hanging techniques, but as you know, golf is about rotation. And
And I mean, it's absolutely perfect for you, and probably something that we need to talk more about and get more analysis out there. Because if you look at golf, it's weight transfer, it's rotation, and it's a pelvic strike.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
They actually say, present your belly button. I'm like, guys, it's called a pubic bone strike. It's what I practice. And that's what you need to do because when you have a pubic bone, when you're following through and you have a pubic bone strike, right? Then you've got toe to it's really, to me, it's not toe to fingers, it's toe to the end of your club. And so the two biggest challenges, which I'm getting used to, you let the club do the work, right? A lot of people just want to just smash it. And really it's gravity and you're letting, you're bringing it back, hinging it, but you're bringing the club down and you're letting that gravity, that pendulum, that momentum happen, and you're bringing it through. And as you're bringing it through, and then you keep, you stay and you watch where you're going to land versus just whacking it and go off, the what we promote in the movement lesson touch, that length of touch, is very obvious to a golf ball, or a softball. When you're throwing a ball, you don't just throw and go. I mean, you keep your eye on the prize, and people don't realize it's that extension of you and your movement. So that's where too, where we're talking about deviation and compensations. If I go to compensate on something like that, that compensation goes through to the ball. And people say, oh, yeah, lady, that makes a lot of sense. But when we're talking about it with someone that needs assistance, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. And I'm like, guys, and that's what I think the beauty of our podcast is to talk about all about movement, that we're here to talk about all about movement, which deviations and compensations are very dominant to the human body and to the brain.
And I think that's a big issue with so many people, and particularly your weekend warriors, people who are just playing golf for fun in particular,
Yeah,
won't have taken the time to properly recover and rehabilitate post injuries. It stays in the body, and then suddenly they're compensating. They're wondering why they can't do something that they used to be able to do 10 years. Oh, it's old age. It's not just old age. It's that compensation that the body's going through that they can't move efficiently and effectively.
Yeah, and I really like the one comment too, where I'm never gonna teach you how to hit a ball. I'm gonna teach you how to swing. And I'm like, oh, but the ball's just gonna get in the way, which again is that ability to I wouldn't say master, but it's just a wonderful process. But me having crooked legs, femoral torsion, right, I really have to have an overcompensation for my structure. That doesn't mean I can't do it. Actually, I'm pretty impressed how straight my balls go. I was expecting a bit more of, but my first time out doing 18, we only had to throw in 5 balls, meaning that, it either didn't go the length that you wanted or it went a bit more far off. I didn't play the ball where it lie because I'm not a good enough golfer. And for a good golfer to wait for someone to take 15, but I bogeyed and I sunk a 20-foot putt into my first 18 hole. And I'm like, I couldn't do that again if I tried, but I'm hooked. So,
Yeah. But for me, there's two things about it as well. You know, the fact that, like you said, you're taking it from a movement perspective, and you're almost getting into the moment, and you're staying in that moment, and you're following the ball, and you know that visual impact of visual work you've done comes into play there. Firstly, but secondly, the movement is more important than the strength, and that's where I think we start to compensate even more because we think, all right, well, we can't hit it hard enough. And we then put more and more effort, more and more force into hitting the ball and focus more on strength as a compensation because we've actually got glitches in our movement. So when you're focusing on the movement, that you're going to hit the ball further, but you're going to be more accurate because you're not trying to hit the casing off the ball.
right. If I put muscle into it, I land to the left. You know what I mean? If I feel I'm going to put muscle into it, I've got to change my stance considerably. So I'm already telling my brain I'm using too much muscle, so I'm gonna clip it at the end because again I'm tighter, and because of that now I have to change my stance. So I'm really overcompensating for my inabilities to hit a ball with that flow through. So at that point, that's when I backed off and said, okay, these guys know what they're talking about, and they say do it this way, and I'm just going to do it that way. And it's amazing how that ball went from here to here. And I'm like, this is pretty cool. Now I have to get better at my chip shots and all of that, that I can lob it and versus, hitting it and where I'm going to start controlling the ball. But right now I'm just learning how to swing, really.
Yeah, and then that's it really. There's something else that you said at the start of that though, I think is so important to actually touch on and to emphasize to pretty much every single parent that comes across or has a child with additional needs or has any sort of movement issues whatsoever. It's the fact that you're learning something new, a new movement, a new skill at the age of 60. And yet so many families will come to see us and I've had it quite a few times recently where I've been in a couple of weeks ago in Liverpool. I literally had 3 or 4 sessions on the trot where a family would say, "Do you think my child's ever going to sit? Do you think my child's ever going to walk? Do you think my child's ever going to be able to stand?" And I'm like, "Well, you can never say never." But they've all been told that, oh, well, if you can't do something by a certain point, they're never going to be able to do it. If you can't walk by the age of 5, you're never going to be able to do it. You don't learn anything after a certain age. I'm like, well, what's the point in being in education? You know, neurogenesis can occur throughout our lifetime. Yes, the optimal window is up to the age of 5, and that's when neurogenesis happens earlier and we get brain growth and learn more easier. But it doesn't mean that without the right effort that we can't learn things later on.
Well, so this is my first time out at a range. I'm consistently I'm consistently going
Yeah,
off, right? That's my first time.
yeah.
But my last time, right? Now I've already
Strain up. Yeah.
so again, am I perfect? No. But I can see that I'm learning and I'm improving in just 3 weeks. So or 2 weeks, whatever that was. And so I just I'm not hurting anybody. I have a new sport. I'm getting out. I'm out in the sun. I'm out in the fresh. I'm meeting new friends. It's just healthy living, but that's what half a school is. Half a school going to school is not like you're just here to learn your ABCs. Again, you're networking. I mean, what's the sense of going to college? What's the first thing they say? You're there to network. You're there to meet new friends. You're supposed to engage. I told my kids, I don't care if it's underwater basket weaving, photography, take the course. If you think you're going to be interested in it, you're going to have like-minded people around, you know what I mean? And it'll change your life. And to see my kids doing so much extracurricular activity, I that's my proudest moment versus their GPA. Although I've got one magna cum laude and one summa cum laude, so I'll take the GPA part. But the fact that they're doing drum corps and collegiate a cappella and Graham right now, Graham, the whole reason why we're here is he's taking lightsaber fighting courses. They have a club.
Really?
Yeah. So he's actually,
Seriously?
yeah. And I'm like, so I have to buy you a lightsaber? He goes, oh, I have one I could borrow there.
So if there's a new Star Wars trilogy, are we going to see Graham starring in it as well?
Well,
He's going to
I
be the new
guess.
Yoda.
Yeah, right. And I could do the voice and he could just stand there. So it just, you know what I mean? Like have fun in life. It's making him more well-rounded again, meeting new people. Maybe he'll get a job opportunity from it. But these things don't happen when you're on a couch and or you're worried about what someone else is going to think about you, you know, what is an opportunity for you versus somebody else.
And what did the professionals say to you as well when Graham was younger in terms of what he was going to achieve in life?
Oh, well, I again, don't get upset. It was a diagnosis back then. With this, the autism was a big thing because now everything was the autism's fault. But when he got diagnosed at 4 with mental retardation, that was it. I mean, they just threw him under the bus. He's never going to amount to anything, you know, that kind of thing. He was going to get sent away to a different school now. And that's when I fought for the homeschool. And they're like, why would you want him there? You know, he needs to learn how to be autistic. I'm like, no, that's the whole point. I don't want him to learn how to be autistic. And finally, I was with my husband at the time, and he's like, we just have to realize this is going to be the cards that are dealt. And this is actually when I went from being Michelle Turner mom into I didn't know it was Michelle Turner movement lesson, but this is when I started said I finally said y'all need to leave because I will do it. But what people don't realize at the age of 12, he was with his pulmonologist and she evaluated him. And she turned to me while she was holding his thigh. She turned to me and she goes, you know, he's not going to walk in college. He'll be an assisted, meaning a wheelchair or something. And I looked at her, I was like, do you know who you're talking to? Because by then I was Michelle Turner. And thank God, because I told him the other day we were talking about it. He's 6'3" and he's 225 pounds. I'm so glad he's not, you know, narcissist. I mean, just what you're working on with your daughter, that the transitional skills, like that being able to get in and out of a position is crucial to long term, even for me.
That again to me reiterates that at the age of 12 being told that, and look at him go now, and like lightsaber training. And it probably, because they might look at it and think, oh well, he's just an outlier. Well, he is, because you're comparing him to, they're looking for correlations in every single study, right? So if they're just finding correlations, they say, oh yeah, most people by the age of 5, if they've not walked, then they'll never walk. But that's because they tell people you're never going to walk, and a lot of people start to believe that, and they settle for a child potentially. Like you said, your husband had said, even, like we just got to work with the cards that are dealt. Well, if you believe that, the Henry Ford quote, whether you believe you're right, whether you believe you can or you can't, then you're right. It's the same. If you just believe that, then you're going to fall in and become just another one of the average statistics who can't achieve it. But if you actually put extra work and time and effort in, then you're going to become one of those outliers and potentially prove them wrong and do something that they're saying they're not capable of. I had another family from Yorkshire started recently, an 18-year-old. She got told she'll never be able to walk. And at the age of 8, physios turned around to her, and her parents did a lot of alternative therapy. And she started walking. The physio said, brilliant. Well, we'll discharge you now. And he said, why? She can only take a few steps. She said, but she can take those steps. What more do you want from us? And that was it. And after physios told them, mum and dad, for years that alternative therapies don't work, and if you're not done it by the age of 5, you'll never be able to do it. They did the alternative therapies. They got the results. She did start taking steps, and then they discharged and said, "Well, what more do you want?"
Right.
It's
The deviations and compensations, I think, in life, whether it's social, emotional, or physical, really come from the other people. We really have to, you know, as the old saying goes, you know, don't give your dreams to people that aren't going to nurture them. You know, it's those kind of situations, and I don't think, like again, like you're starting to learn golf, you know, you're 60, and I'm like, well, do I look and act 60? Like, what is 60? Like, what am I supposed to be like blue haired? And I don't mean to be disrespectful, but I mean, like, why can't I have vitality? Why can't I? be cheeky and fun, and why can't I just run around and just enjoy it? I'm not looking to go on the LPGA, but who knows? I could do the seniors, and why not? Even my golf uh lesson person said, he's like, he called over the manager that goes, look at this woman. She just started golfing like 3 weeks ago. And I had to hit a ball for him. So
But I think that's so
that
important,
makes me
and
feel
like we
good.
need to pause there almost for a second and really let people appreciate that and take it in, because that is so important. You've got to keep challenging yourself. You've got to keep going. There's a reason that you don't look and act 60 is because of the things that you're doing. And I know, like, there's the quote, and I think it was a sort of famous French football coach that worked in the UK for a long time said that the day you stop learning is the day that you die. And I really believe that. And you see that with people who just retire from work, and within 2 or 3 years, that's it. They're over. They don't leave the house. They don't do anything. They just think that's it. They're done.
But
Whereas,
the
extend your life and learn new things.
we need to do a podcast on ourselves having deviations and compensations, but really I think it's very important that we don't have deviations or compensations because someone else's views on our children's lives, our lives. Yes, some things you still have to go through the motions, and like, if you're in softball, you have to do what the coach says. And we can go into David Beckham. Just, I still love that documentary, but the struggles at Manchester going into to Real Madrid and back forth. But coaches will have their views, and to say don't date, don't marry, don't whatever. Well, what I mean, social skills in your sporting life is just as important. But again, where did the deviations take him? What are the overcompensations he had to overcompensate? You have to overcompensate all the time for teachers and coaches. And I really believe, like writing. I think all kids should learn to write, and nobody says anything for a year. Why should I be writing for you? Why should be writing for me and learn the flows like, even when I write a book, people will start to edit it or critique it and like, oh, you've run on sentences. Let's stop. I'm not doing this for punctuation. We're doing this for getting the content out. I'm not going to edit something that's not going to be in the book. I want you to say, wow, I really like what's coming out here. This area is a little weak. Can we beef it up? That's the feedback I know. Now, once I have that and I can go through it, then I'll start worrying about sentence structure and if I'm speaking more in the spoken word versus the written word, and where this is going. Do I need more diagrams? But I'm not going to spin my wheels on diagrams on a content that's not even going to be in the book. And so I think the same thing to look at with movement. Like, I've always had a beef on functional movement. If it's not functional, why is my son learning it? Like, he doesn't have the brain space to learn how to do this or this. Well, we're testing range of motion for what? When is he going to stand like this and do flexion when I get it, he should be capable. I'm the first person to agree with you, but you're spinning your wheels asking my son to do something that's not functional in his world.
I did a 2 minute video on what we meant by transitions the other day, and I think that really comes into it for me there. It's the fact that if we're able to actually do that and emphasize transitions, and transitions being so important, it's got to be functional. The reason that we do a transition is to become functional, whereas so many therapies, you see things online. I've seen sessions that Quinn's been in where the emphasis is maybe on a milestone. So you've got to cut, you've just got to stand right, and you put in standing. It's podcast and looking at the difference between performance and learning, and it's actually just in that standing position. Okay, and then we're counting, and I've seen videos where people might be like, someone's child's in sitting and they're counting up to 20 or 30 seconds while they're in sitting, but really, the learning's almost stopped there. But if you go 3 or 4 seconds in sitting and then back down into lying, and you're transitioning back down and transitioning back up into sitting, transitioning back out, the weight transfer that you're getting, the feedback to the brain so much better, the movement's better, so we're getting more growth. Brain growth factors coming into play. There's more signals going to and from the brain, and the brain's growing through that that functional movement. We're not functional unless you're going to be the king's guard. You don't want to stand there not moving for hours
Well,
on end. You
first
want
of
to
all,
constantly be
I was
moving.
I was going to mention the beefeaters again. They have to go through heavy psych testing to stand like that. That's not something the brain is happy with. You have to make sure because it'll make them squirrely, almost mad. To stand with the feet 5 inches apart, parallel, and that kind of attention. But also, too, this goes back to your outliners. The way that we approach movement for anybody gives more opportunities. And so outliners has been looked at is like a day or a year. But what I still look at is like, do you want $1 million or you want a penny compounded? Movement is compounded. And so when you're working with weight transfer and transitional skills, that's when you get that compounded effect. Since you're working on 5 different skills at once versus one rote, right? You get that outliners effect. You get that long-term effect versus, oh, I only worked on this one thing today. Yeah, but we can't get in and out of sitting. Yeah, but at least we worked on sitting. Versus the ability of my child, I can sit there on my phone and my kid just moves versus I still have to self-assist in every action because of rote skill programming.
And I also think that that's where everyone becomes focused on coming up, and people forget about coming back down and how important it is to be able to transition back down again. And suddenly, okay, we can get up and we can stand, and you've got that, but you've got to then help them again because they can't come back down themselves. And that's why it's so important that those transitions that we keep working on. And but even then we go back to talking about compensation and the any sort of injury that we might have, any infection or illness can lead to us having to compensate for our movements. And so it might be that we need to relearn and reintegrate
That was
some of
my son.
those transitions.
Right. And but the telltale sign that someone is our client or special needs, however you want to look at it, and this goes to adults, they can't take a step backwards. They can't go backwards. I don't know any modality except for us that works on the backwards. Right? They all want to go walking forward, but when a kid's learning to walk on a couch and so forth, they shuffle. Their feet go backwards and forwards. And I'm sure all of you are shaking your heads like, oh yeah, they do. If I'm even just
Develop that relationship with the floor.
taking a key into the door, what do I have to do to open the door? I have to go backwards. I have to allow that movement to come. When I'm catching a ball, I have to go backwards. When I'm getting hit, good or bad, in sports, I have to go backwards. We don't work on the full 360. Or I'm saying we don't, but we do, but other people just don't, even at a high level footballer. They all they're throwing the pass, they're throwing the pass, there's range of motion, they're throwing the pass. Well, yeah, but what about like I would happen with TheraBands receiving, going back? Can you still catch a ball this way, this way? And you see stuff like that in the big key players like the Patrick Mahomes, but that's what separates you from a high schooler to, going up the food chain.
You see that with Mahomes all the time, don't you? That ability to drop back and then still got that vision, still got the ability to read the field, still got the ability to make plays, even if he's off balance or off throwing off the wrong leg, as they keep saying. If you get more people who are able to move like Mahomes and work on movement like Mahomes did, it wouldn't be classed or seen as being wrong. I also think that it's really important that you're talking about that the backward step, and there's been some really big boxing bouts that they've got a lot of attention going on in Saudi Arabia recently, and you look at that, and it's that ability to be able to counter punch and be able to take those backward steps is almost as important as being able to come forward. That ability to react to an opponent and go back to dodge to
Yeah,
then counter punch is so important and has really been emphasized with the elite fights we've seen recently.
yeah, I mean, like I roller skate. I still roller skate. Again, it's when you're moving, it's the backwards, it's the forwards, it's the you're in the ocean and the waves are getting you, and you're swimming. You know what I mean? The actions are not always forward based, and this is where we really should stop here. But we really need to go into a podcast. Maybe we can do it next week. on the qualities of movements and start showing that in and out. But
Sorry, I was just going to say, yeah. I mean, I do that with Quinn all the time, and I just thought like we learn to walk backwards as we're learning to walk forwards because it's complex and it's working the brain and it's adding that variation to it. And so I loved it when we were there when we were in the clinic in June and Felipe was getting her walking backwards on the track. I thought it was absolutely superb. So it's certainly something that. I know that I work on with Quinn and I try and incorporate with other clients as well because it's so important.
right. And you see it even with seniors. That why can't they go up a stepping stool anymore? Because they can't come back off of it. They can't, and I just see my poor father now getting in and out of the car, but here I am, but he's like, "Oh, I'm too old for your help, don't waste your time with me." And I'm like, "Dad, you lose those legs. Wait, it's everything's gone."
Independence goes, functionality goes. Yeah.
And where do the falls happen in seniors? Why do you break the hip? Because that backward step wasn't there to be found, and there you go, and you're down. And versus that shuffle or that stumble, and I'm not saying you're never going to fall. You might fall, but there's a way of falling that kids go down and they go back up. The falling reflex is very important that we do it, not that we're afraid to fall. Look at a great footballer, US or otherwise, soccer, rugby. These guys are falling all the time, but they know how to do it with finesse. It's not a preventative movement, it's a part of their play.
I think you see that a lot in rugby, and I've done some of the analysis on the Movement Lesson Sports Academy, looking at rugby and just looking at it. They literally hit the ground and roll and the back up, and it's that rotation and weight transfer again coming into play, and it's actually falling doesn't stop them moving.
Mhm. Yeah. No, because it's not a fall. Fall is a single action, but they're not really falling. It's a somersault. It's something that's completely different.
Gymnastic roll, yeah. I think it'd just be good just to wrap up with sort of like you just giving us a definition for everyone listening is what is deviation? Obviously, we're talking about it, but what is deviation?
A deviation is something that you have to do for several things. It could be vision, it could be structural skeletal system. It could be due to scar tissue. You've had an accident, that and the other, but there's a line of movement. That's what we're talking about, the line of the ball and so forth. But from your fingers to your toes, there's lines of movement. And so when you go into them and that line somehow is interrupted for whatever reason, the body will deviate. The body's a massive human calculator. And so it won't put itself into harm's way. And that is now the difference now of prevention is the harm's way part. If the body feels that it's going to fall or hurt itself, re-injure, whatever you want to put it with that, when it finds something difficult or will hurt them, they will prevent the movement. It will prevent the fall because nobody's strong enough to stop the fall. And so instead of me continuing, let's say, dancing with you, if I'm now concerned that I'm going to fall, it will prevent me from dancing with you.
And I think it's important to point out to everybody as well that we see that a lot with children we're working with, and particularly if we're getting into doing a movement assessment with potentially a new family, and just be able to point out that to parents sometimes can be quite striking, and they just get used to seeing how their child moves. It's like, look at this there's almost like there's a blockage there, and you can move in one direction, but try and go in the other way, and they can't
No, child is much smarter than us.
do
They
it, and we
will,
can't shift that. We might be able to shift weight left to right, but we can't shift weight right to left. And
right, right. And a child is much smarter than us. I say this, been saying it for years. If it hurts them or it is difficult, it's the same language and they will find a different way of doing that movement. The breath.
a child takes the path of least resistance.
Yeah. That's why McDonald's is winning. McDonald's doesn't taste better.
Yeah.
I could go to the store right now, get grass-fed filet mignon with grilled asparagus. It would be better for you and probably cost less. But the fact that I could take a bus through the drive-through and feed 18 people in 8 minutes and everybody gets something different, it's the ease, and that's what's winning. But we do it with our bodies. But when you're in pain, to me, that's your body saying that's the easiest way I know how to move is with pain. And that's where again, where adults look at movement being a problem, but they blame it. I'm old, I'm this. And when I say, well, I can fix you or I can help you, some people look at me like they've got three heads. No, I just, this has been bothering me for a while, so do you not want to be fixed? But I don't fight anymore. I have enough
And we've
clients.
got more from our new sponsors, McDonald's, next week.
Yeah, right.
And then also that gets us into what is compensation, really, doesn't it? And it's that deviation and figuring that way around it to actually overcome the deviation that they're seeing.
Well, look at it this way. What we have to overcompensate for is go for stamina. Stamina doesn't mean more power. It means ease of movement. And so if you want more stamina, if you want to be able to do things like learn a new trick and a new sport and do this or just be able to do something better, do it with fresh eyes. The stamina that you're looking for is ease of movement. And that's what's important. Muscles do come into fact, your vision and all that, but the better, again, that's where practice comes into play, but practice for ease of movement versus practice for necessarily perfection. Because if you practice for perfection and you're doing it incorrectly, that's where you're going to get the pain, the tears, the stresses, the itis, the heat, and that's what breaks down the body.
Yeah,
So
and that's what we
that's
were saying earlier about the fact that most people never really properly rehab it, and they just keep going and keep going, and they compensate with strength, and then that very often then actually limits the movement even more, and then they have to compensate and compensate and compensate, and it's almost like it's a downhill spiral, isn't it?
Tiger
It's a
Woods.
snowball and avalanche.
Tiger
Yeah.
Woods,
Oh,
skate.
yeah.
He had a
Hmm.
wiry little player. He played great. Someone said you need more muscles. Just destroyed him. Just destroyed him.
And
Um,
then at every injury, and he tries to compensate for that and become stronger again. And yeah, muscles play an important role in movement, but it's not the most important thing in movement. Surely it's got to be that connection with the brain and our ability then to weight transfer and to rotate cross midlines to work on those motor neurons and get a feedback to the brain. Let's get neural mapping and let's get those connections back down and let's move in an efficient manner without deviation and without the requirement of compensation because it's just one injury after another.
yep. With that, I can't thank you enough, Scott. It's all about movement. I'm Michelle Turner, movement lesson in Phoenix. And
And I'm Scott Davies, Movement Lesson UK in Yorkshire, England.
yeah. And any questions you guys have, or you want us to cover a topic about movement or review a video for topic for podcast, shoot it over here and we'll take care of it.
Remember, it's all about movement.
Yeah, all about movement.